Abby in England, thanks for waiting. You're on Atheist Experience with Matt and MD Aware.
Hello, MD Aware. Hello, Matt. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Good. Yes, I'm calling from UK, and I've got a couple questions for you guys. I'm an atheist, and one of the questions I would like to ask you guys is, when do you see the religion going away, especially in developed countries like Europe and America? When do you see religion going away?
Never. But MD's answer might be
different. I think it's probably gonna change. I think. What I would speculate is that it'll become more and more cultural in nature, to the point where there aren't any actual beliefs associated with it. That's, if you think things are going towards the atheist side, and if we're talking about how religion might regress in society, I think that's probably how it would go. There will be cultural things that are retained because they're, like Christmas, for instance, in sort of the Christian world. There's a lot of atheists who are, they don't have any of the beliefs that are associated with the Christian Christmas, but they still do some of the, some of the rituals and the customs and whatever, just because that's how they were raised and they like it. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. So I think it'll just be cultural.
Yeah. I think the impact of various religious beliefs will diminish over time. I don't have a timeline for when it's going to get to where it's not an issue. I also think they're going to change. That's what we know from the history of religions. They change. Christianity today is not what Christianity was 100 or 200 or 500 years ago. Although there are some people whose views today are probably very similar to what they were 500 years ago. But generally speaking, Christianity on the whole has changed and evolved.
Yeah.
And I could see a future where Christianity ceases to exist in any reasonable sense. But I used to say the same thing about pagan beliefs. Like, I remember an episode of the show probably 16, 17 years ago where I said, nobody believes in, Thor anymore. And of course, I immediately start getting letters from pagans. And so while, and who knows, some of them seem to literally believe that the Greek and Roman pantheon of gods are real, or the Norse gods are real. And some of them, it seems to be more figurative and more like cosplay. None of them can provide any more of an argument or evidence for it than Christians can for Jesus or anything else. But I don't.
Yeah, correct.
Because my estimation is that religions are the result of flaws in our thinking. And I don't think we're ever going to be perfect thinkers. So there's always going to be something that counts as religion.
So, Matt,
what's maybe a more interesting question is: are there going to be new religions that evolve or arise? Right, that would be an interesting thing to speculate about. But I don't think we can do anything but speculate.
Now, if I ask you a question, so if you see, like in Europe right now, you can see in the UK, for example, there used to be 20 years ago, there used to be people really packing up in churches. But now we don't have that situation anymore. So the churches looks like they are like historical monuments. And if you go to countries like in Scandinavian countries, in Sweden and Sweden, Norwegian, and then other countries, you can see that the churches are historical monuments. They not serve for religion anymore. But my problem is one. So my ancestors are coming from Africa, but every time I go to Africa, there's a new religion that has been born. There's a new prophet. There's a new apostle that has been born. How do you align this, like in third world countries, in South America and in Africa, religion is boosting, whereas in developed countries, religion is really, really going down. I'm not talking about America. I've been to US, and I can see that you guys, you are very divided. 50%, they're really, really pro-religion. Other 50% are normal people. So what do you see that? what can you say about that?
I really don't know. We've both kind of tried to tell you what we suspect, but we don't really have a timeline. I think what you've described is more evidence of kind of what we're talking about, that things are going to keep changing. And the thing is, it's not a straight line down to like religion's massively relevant and then it just declines on a straight reel down to irrelevancy. Instead, it ebbs and flows. And so, for example, religions kind of get a boost for when 9/11 happened. Religiosity and church attendance went up, and after that it declined. But the trend is a downward trend towards less and less religion. And even where religions stay, the trend is towards less and less specific and fundamentalist, etc. Beyond that, I really can't speculate beyond that.
I mean, I think what you're asking is kind of a sociological question more than anything else, and because you're kind of asking, to me, what drives religion, what is driving people's religiosity. And I think that there have been a lot of studies that I don't feel qualified to comment about, but that question has been addressed. And so I think if you did some Googling or like some Google Scholar searches, you would find some sociology literature that might answer some of those questions you have.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Matt, can I ask you a quick question, please?
Sure.
Myself, I see myself as, I've been following your shows. I've been following your, the ACA, even if I don't live in America. But one thing that really struck me, I'll start learning about epistemology and then philosophy around, what is true, what is not true. And then I would like to start an education as well. I'm really passionate about this kind of stuff, but I would like to run something similar for Africa continent, because it really hurts me when I see all countries in Africa being really driven by religion. It hurts me really, really hard. And I would like to start something educating people about, critical thinking, about epistemology. Where do I start? How did you start I know I've been following your shows, but what would you advise somebody like me?
First thing I'd do is try to look at international organizations that are secular organizations that already have some of these goals and see what role what they're missing and what their plan is and how you can help. Because quite frankly, going into some places and trying to teach sound epistemology and critical thinking skills will get you killed, because you can't help but speak out against religious belief and supernatural claims. And so rather than just running off half-cocked, it's probably best, to start hitting out the national and international, Atheist Alliance International. I don't know if they're still active or not, but hitting up some of those organizations to say, hey, I'm really passionate about this. What is your organization doing on it, and how can I help? That's probably a better start than...
Sorry, Matt. Sorry to cut you off, but to be honest, I've been hitting brick walls, because where I come from a country that was hit by a genocide in 1994, where 1 million people died. So if I give you just a small, a short summary of my history, but during the genocide, 1 million people died, and I was one of the people who, maybe one of the luckiest people who survived that genocide, when people were being killed. People were being killed in churches. People were praying, were crying and praying in churches. Some survivors, suddenly one of my cousins survived from one of the churches, same as me, and he became one of the famous pastor in evangelical industry. And for me, I don't understand how you can survive and say that you were lucky, you were blessed when everybody else died. So that really, this kind of concept drive me to understand, epistemology. And then if God really exists, these kind of things shouldn't have happened. All this stuff show me that there's something that is not right.
Sorry, that
is right there.
Sorry, Abby, but that's not necessarily
Sorry,
true. So that's not necessarily true. You're making assumptions about both what type of God might exist and what's consistent with that type of God. It's simply not true. You can't say if God existed, these sorts of things wouldn't happen. Within Christianity, for example, within modern Christianity, generally, man has been given free will to do what he wants. So you can't complain to God about genocides because God's allowing it, because this life doesn't matter. It's the next life that matters. And so, yeah, I agree. That's bullshit and it's awful and it diminishes things about mankind. But it's not surprising to me that if people were in a town where everybody died except for them, they might consider that, God saved them for a reason, because they can't come up with any other reason why they were lucky.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I've seen so many other, situations when, we're living in a, in a rented house, and then you don't have rent to pay that month, and somebody just suddenly you pick up a bundle of notes, and then it's money, and you say, okay, God gave me this money, but you realize somebody else lost the money.
Yeah.
And you go into church and you start praising God. You say that God gave you money, but somebody else just lost money for rent. All this kind of stuff. It showed me that, I follow your logic. You said once, you said either God doesn't exist, or you said either God exists but don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So this is where
or has some plan that people don't understand or whatever. You can come up with all kinds of post hoc rationalizations to explain why the claims about God aren't consistent with what we observe in reality. But it's not surprising to me that people who've been through difficult times, who can't come up with a plausible explanation for why they were favored over somebody else, everything about that concept screams some God or some being, if you happen to believe in that, clearly favored you. And then it becomes a matter of what for. So, but if I were you, I'd reach out to some of the international organizations. I got to move on to other callers and see which ones have the best plan for the type of thing that you want to do. Getting education out to people who need it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, MD Aware. I really appreciate it, and have a good evening. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.